Hey guys, it's Troy with DIY Home and Auto. I'm here today with a 2001 Dodge Neon. We've worked on this car before. It's a buddy of mine who's also a YouTuber, PC Goblin. I'll put a link to his channel down below. He's a good guy and we're working on his car. We're doing a front end suspension today. So we're doing lower control arms, lower ball joints, inner and outer tie rod ends, and the sway bar linkage, both front and back. So that's what we're doing today. Let's get started. Just like that. Save all your parts. You're gonna need them. Alright, now we gotta get the sleeve off of that so that we can get to the back side of it. Be careful because that's still warm. So I torched it. I can feel it. There we go. There's that. Gotta slide the boot off. Doesn't take much to get it off, you just have to get behind it and pry it off. It's got a factory clip on it. Pressure one. So there's that. You just have to get after it and pull. It helps to twist a little bit like so. Alright, and that reveals the inner tie rod that needs to be pulled out. And that's just a lefty-loosey inside there. So we gotta get something on that and get it off. Alright, so I had to crawl underneath and there's a little sliver between the frame, the frame of the car and the transmission where I could get the vice grips up in there, cinch them on, and it was just enough to be able to pop this loose. So now we've got to get all of this off so that we can take the sleeve off because we need to use the sleeve on the new part. So we got to do that. Some more of that. Get that down inside here to do some good. We did this before we started too, but can never have enough penetrating oil. Never have too much, never have enough. Whatever. I knew what I meant, that's important. $3.24. There we go. We packed grease down in there. They give you a little grease packet. So we packed that full of grease right before we put it all together. Now we're ready to put it back on the car. And that should be the same length as the other one. Alright, so that is the bolt that goes up through the lower control arm and into the frame of the car. It took some major doing to get that bad boy out of there. I'll show you what I had to do. I had to use a breaker bar with my socket attached, obviously, and then a pipe to extend and get some leverage. So now it becomes a really long wrench. You still have to kind of be careful when you're doing this because you're putting a lot of torque on something. You want to make sure that you're using an impact socket that's made for that. If you're using one of the silver ones, you'll end up popping it. You'll break your tools. So use an impact. Add some lubricating oil, some penetrating oil. I use Planet Safe lubricants for that. AIM, like this. Let it soak in for a little while. So I hit that as soon as JP showed up with his car. I hit all of these spots with this to let it start soaking in. Still ended up having to use a breaker bar to get that off. A breaker bar with a pipe. And it still took some doing. But, so I've got it all apart. This front end one came out pretty easy. I used my impact tool. You can do this job without impact. It just makes it faster. This is the part we fast forward. Oh my gosh. There we go. So that one's not nearly as corroded as the one on the back. This is the one that goes in the front. It actually goes through this direction into the frame. So that's the orientation of this. This is your ball joint at the outer edge, the lower ball joint. The big one goes through there. This one was there. So I've got all three disconnected. It's ready to come out. I'm still going to need a hammer to use. I use a little 3-pound sledge and a pry bar to get things out of the tight places. But let's get that thing out of there. And that was the bolt that goes across the ball joint. So on the back side of the ball joint, there's a little notch. You can barely see it. Right there.
I won't focus on it.
And the bolt goes through this direction and just basically wedges in there so that it can't drop out or move around. So you take that out and then this can pop out and then we can take the rest of it out. Right. I need my tuning fork is what I need right there. And this one, you just wedge up in there and whack it and it spreads it apart. There we go. There it goes. Like that. There it goes. I knew it was close. Alright, so that's loose. There it goes. Boom, just like that. See? So easy. And so broken. That is not supposed to just fall out of there. So, let's get new ones in there.
Pardon.
Alright, so the inner and outer tie rod ends are going in next. And that's just a threaded end here, the opposite of how we took it out. Just make sure you don't cross thread it, that would be a bad day. We don't need bad days in the shop. There we go. And micro adjustment. And then another micro adjustment. As soon as I can get it to reattach. There we go. And boom, she's tight. That's all the tighter it needs to be. You don't have to really reef on it. Just have to snug it up so it can't move. And I may need JP's hands for this, but we'll see if I can do it.
You got it out by yourself, you don't need me.
Is that how that works? I may need a bigger hammer. Ah, look at all these. That's plenty loud, that's for sure.
A little bit.
You could probably get a tie down or a bungee to hold this thing out of the way so that you can work it. That might be easier, but... And the right angle, that helped. I had to lift it up to a flatter angle and then tap it to get it to go in. Now I've just got to fine tune it to get the bolt holes to line up so I can put the bolts where they need to go. And we'll be good to go. So let's do it. I'm gonna need pry bars and such. And under the car I go again. Wow, that's got a long ways to go. I don't think I want that attached yet. There it goes. And that lines up the front one. Both of them. It's gotta go up just a hair, like that. And then this is the nut that goes on the back side of the front bolt. If you can show from under here, it actually goes up through that onto the bolt. And then the bolt spins, and that tab keeps it from spinning, so you don't have to put a wrench on it. It'll just spin till it hits. And then you can get a wrench or an air tool on it. I'm not going to tighten that yet till I get the back one lined up and in place as well. Which is the harder of the two to get lined up. Ooh, oh, don't smack me in the head. Piece of crap. Let's see, this is the one that's gotta go. Alright, so we need this held out of the way so that can go. There we go. That's what we need. Which is why it fell out. Oh, that's right. Alright, air tool me. Aha! That's the one. That's the one. I like it. Make sure it's grabbing. And then let's go up a notch. A little more torque. So the back one, size-wise, that's a 24 millimeter. The front one is a 21 millimeter. If that helps anybody out. And it's pitch black, can't see a thing. Add some torque with my breaker bar just to make sure that's good and torqued down. Gotta get out from under the car for this piece. If you apply pressure to the bottom of this, then it should just pop in the rest of the way. All in theory. How close are we, JP?
I think it's in. There's a small gap, but
peek down the hole and see if we're lined up. It's got to go up just a hair more than that. That's really loud. Yes, it is. Ooh, that's really close. Might have done it.
I moved a lot.
Yep, we're there. A little bit blind here. There we go. There's that. Reusing the semi-rusted bolts so they get kind of hard to put back on there at the end. And let's see if I can remember what size these were. The nut is a size 18, and The bolt side is a size 15. This just needs to be good and snug. It's not doing anything crazy under there. It's just holding that ball joint from slipping out of the slot. That's it. You just pivot your steering until it lines up. Push it down through the hole until you can get the nut started. I said until you can get the nut started. There we go. Is that your phone going nuts? Is it your wife? That's better. So, the way you do an alignment on a 2001 Dodge Neon is with your tie rod ends. It's the outer is where it's adjusted. You can back off that nut just a little bit from the tie rod end itself, and then there's flat edges on there where you can get a wrench and make your adjustment, and you adjust one side or the other, and then it changes the angle of the tire, pulls it in or pulls it out in order to adjust the alignment. So we've adjusted these to match the ones that came off of it. In order to test this, we have to put the tires back on. We'll eyeball down from the front edge of this tire to the back edge of this tire, down towards the back tire, and just make sure that one tire is lined up completely. Go to the other side and see if any adjustments needed. And that's basically where we're at this point. I've got everything else put back together. I need to do a once over on everything and make sure everything's tight, and then we're good to go. Alright, so this is the passenger side, and we've got it to the point where we've got to get this motor mount out of the way, and we went to start adjusting that, or loosening it, and the whole thing is just destroyed on the inside. So good thing we have a new one of those. We're going to be replacing that as well, but I thought I'd show you that. We're trying to get the lower A-arm out, and we've got to get to the bolt to be able to pull it out. So